What's up, guys, and welcome to Press A Repeatedly. Justin Tomasello here with Chris Gold. And Chris, it's time.
It's time.
It's time for our Game of the Year Celebration 2018.
Woo! Yeah! Mm-mm-mm.
Everybody dance now. This has been the Press A Repeatedly 2018 Game of the Year Celebration.
Featuring Kool and the Gang.
Hosted by Dick Clark.
Welcome to the Game of the Year. I'm sorry, the what? Game of the Year? Are you fucking kidding me?
What the hell am I doing?
Who are you people?
Yes,
where am
this
I?
is it.
Someone get Dick out of here.
But yeah, this is it. It took all year, but here we are, the end of year 2 of Press A Repeatedly. All of the Press A Repeatedly team members have voted. Their top 10 votes are in. They are compiled, and we have a collective top 10 games of the year, which we are going to read off later this episode.
I am so excited to reveal this list to you guys. Justin and I, as we kept adding in more votes and tallying up the point totals, we were just getting more and more excited, like, oh man. And then when we finally looked at the total numbers, it was so close. Our end of the year tally was so close. But each of the games that we voted for were very deserving. We feel like the list is very fair. I can't wait to reveal it at the end of the episode.
Yeah, and what was really interesting about this year, as opposed to last year, there was there was some differences here and there, but like the main three was pretty similar for everybody. It was either Zelda, Mario, or Destiny 2, in a certain ranking, and that's pretty much how it played out with the total top 10. But this year, everybody's list was different. The top 3 for every single person was different, and we were just down the wire, not wondering what it was going to turn out to be. And I think we got a pretty great list shaped up for you this year.
Yeah, honestly, it was pretty surprising how things shook out. I mean, honestly, what a year it has been. Just looking at all the games that came out, I feel like, especially after last year, we had the release of the Switch, all the games that came out for that system, plus everything else that came out that year. Last year was very strong, and we were wondering how is this year going to follow that up. And I felt like it started out pretty slow, but ultimately, looking back at this list, this was another really, really strong year.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you listen to the Game of the Year awards last year from us, we had a bunch of different subcategories that we went through first, and then we went to the top 10. We changed it up this year. We did it a little bit simpler, and we just have the one top 10 list that we're going to go over at the end. The top 10 games of the year that we're just going to celebrate instead of the individual awards for this year, just to make things run a little bit easier for us and for you, the listener. But that's not all we're going to talk about today. We got some other things too. We're going to start off with a little brief retrospective of the year in PAR, as in 2018 for Press A Repeatedly, and just some of our favorite memories from the show. And then after that, we're going to go into some honorable mentions of games that didn't quite make the list for different reasons. Maybe they came out not in 2018, or they came out after December, and they weren't eligible for our top 10 list for this year. But just games that people have been playing a lot this year that really meant a lot to them. We'll read off some of those, and then of course we're going to go right into our top 10.
Yep. Consider this sort of our Christmas letter from us to you, the listener. And unlike most Christmas letters that you receive, you're going to want to listen to this recap of the year we had.
Yeah. Good point.
You just open it up. Oh, this one's from Aunt Jamie from Indiana. We have an Aunt Jamie in Indiana. Apparently, oh, the kids are growing up fast. Okay, all right.
Yeah, and we grew a potato this year.
Yeah, the first one died, but then we grew another one, and this one hasn't died just yet. So knock on wood.
And the cover of the card is just a potato with a Santa hat on
it. I can't believe this goes on for 2 more pages.
All right, so let's get started with that retrospective of 2018. It was a crazy year. It was our second year of the show. We weren't as strict of our weekly releases this year, unfortunately. As a little bit of the downside. Towards the end of the year, things got a little crazy, and it was getting a little bit tough to schedule, and our episodes came a little bit sparse in between. But that's something that we're working on. We're going to get back on track, hopefully, for 2019. I'm still thrilled with what we did with our episodes. I think all of our content has been great.
Yeah, we launched a website this past year. That's
Absolutely
exciting.
PressTheRepeatedly.com is up, and everybody can contribute whenever they want, write articles, post drawings, just anything like that to complement games that they're playing. And it's been a lot of fun to just kind of get into that other side of the video game journalism, to actually sit down and think and compile some thoughts on games that we've been playing.
Yeah, or even just expand on thoughts that we don't have time to get to on the show, or talk about things that ordinarily we wouldn't discuss on the show. It's it's really nice and interesting to have that separate venue for expressing our opinions, or for some of the people who've been on the show, for them to express their opinions when they don't have time to be on the show. So yeah, there's a lot of the site's just getting started. We've got a lot more that we can do with it, that we can expand on, and yeah, we could certainly have. I know we haven't been putting out a lot of content on it lately, but we could certainly explore that avenue more going into 2019. So I'm excited for it.
Certainly, yep. And let's see. We had our first ever failure episode where we recorded a whole episode and then something went wrong with Chris's vocal track and we couldn't do anything with it.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, I still don't know what happened. Yeah, we recorded the entire episode. Everything was great. And then for some reason, when I tried to save, ordinarily, when I send my file to you, Justin, it's like several hundred megabytes. Sometimes, depending on how long the episode goes, it might even be close to a gig for just from my side of the file, because I send it like as a whole WAV file. It's huge. That time I tried sending it to you, and it was like 52 kilobytes, and I was like, that's not right. Something's wrong here. And I tried to open it up the file to listen to it, and it just wouldn't. And I remember I sent you a text like, Justin, I think there might be a problem.
So that was our 64th episode where that happened, and I can't believe we lasted that long without any sort of a critical failure on our part.
Hey, yeah, it happens. It happens to everyone at some point. But yeah,
sure
we got,
does.
Especially for you and me. This is our first podcast. This is the first time we ever did anything like this. For us two schlubs to go this long and not have any major malfunctions until that moment. Yeah, that's pretty impressive. We should pat ourselves on the back.
Yeah, and let's see some other statistics, including this episode. That's going to be 38 episodes that we released this year in 2018, which is nothing to sneeze at. Last year we released 43, so we weren't off by that much this year. So I'm pretty impressed with that. Right.
This episode, when it goes up, is going to be episode 80.
That is correct, and it is crazy to think about.
Yeah, we are Justin. We are almost up to triple digits.
I know, and we're going to be hitting that. Hopefully, probably around March or April next year.
Yeah, sometime around then. Yeah, we keep the weekly schedule going.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Maybe a little bit later. I think I did the math wrong, but anyway, we're going to hit it. All right, and now I'm going to go over. Let's see some of our most hilarious episode titles of the year. Let's see. We got Happy Wiener Factory. I don't remember what that was about.
Hold on. Which episode was that?
That was discussing some personal favorite levels in games. That was episode 46 from January 29th.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to go back in the Wayback Machine to find that one. Oh man.
Oh, and before that, we got Dark Death Evil Man.
Oh yeah, Dark Death Evil Man. That must have been our Quiz Time Supreme. When
that was the showdown.
Yep, I remember that.
That horrible game. Let's see. Spider Prick, that was a great title.
Yeah, we had Spider Prick. Let me see.
Testicular Physics.
Yeah, I think that was when we first discussed Red Dead Redemption 2 and its legendary horse genitals.
Definitely some crazy titles here. All right, and then now the fun part, real quick. I'm going to run down the list of indie arcade games that we've played in 2018. And then, Chris, you and I are going to pick probably our maybe top couple worst of the year. Let's see.
I already, as soon as you said that, I already know what my worst of the year is.
I know what it is, but
I've got it in mind right here.
All right, real quick, our indie arcade games that we played this year. We got Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time, Guns, Gore, and Cannoli, Pan, A Tiny Big Adventure, Hyper Light Drifter, Chinbu's Adventure, Astro Bear's Party, Maria the Witch, Dungreed, Choochel, Toddler Simulator. Forgot about that garbage.
Oh, God. Oh, man, I forgot about that, too.
FTL, Faster Than Light, Spy Chameleon, Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy, Fish Out of Water, Burly Men at Sea, The Swords of Ditto, Downwell, Far, Lone Sails, Wizards of Legend, Tropia, Firewatch, Oxenfree, Fallen, Mars Troopers, Chicken Assassin Reloaded. I can't even say this next one without laughing. But Tale of Palmy, Garfield Kart, Cat Catch, Space Pirate Am I, The Mummy Demastered, Pony Island, and Haunted Halloween 86, The Curse of Possum Hollow.
You know, now that you've run through that list and thinking back to all the games that you played versus all the games that I played, I feel like I've gotten the shorter end of the stick on a lot of these indie arcade games. I feel like I played a lot of Drek this year.
But you did put Toddler Simulator on yourself because you used your victory bonus from the one video game quiz time super. Oh no, you forced me to use mine, so you would play Toddler Simulator.
I forced you to use Toddler Simulator on me so that I could make you play Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy.
Yes, you did, and your plan worked perfectly.
All right, so I feel like my three worst games are pretty easy to glean from that list. But Justin, I'm interested to hear yours first. What are the three worst indie arcade games that you played this year?
Okay, let's see. Number 3 would probably be... Well, all right. Number 1, the absolute worst I played this year was Space Pirate Am I. That game was total garbage. I couldn't even stand it. I played it for like minutes and had to stop because it was just such bad controls. The artwork was terrible. The music was terrible. Oh God.
I feel like that's fair. That's more than fair.
But then after that, I mean, nothing terrible. I'm trying to think. I'm going through this list.
This is what I'm talking about. You played a lot of great games this year, but man, good old Chris, he's wading through the shit thigh deep.
Maybe you're right. I mean, Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy, that was not fun and frustrating. So that's probably on that list. And then let's see. Fallen probably would have to be next number 3 on that list. Even though it wasn't as terrible as a game as you would think, it still wasn't all that great.
Remind me again what Fallen was about.
Fallen was that one when you're like this little black alien dude, and like you just kind of fall down this hole, and it's just a 2D platformer like underground, and like you find these rocks that you gotta throw at different enemies and stuff, and all the enemies are black, but they have like red eyes, and they're just coming at you. And there was these bats that kept coming from every angle that were just so hard to dodge, and like would hit you like as you were jumping. They would just kind of come on the screen and hit you, and like it was so frustrating.
Gotcha. All right. Okay, so my 3 worst games. Probably the 3rd worst game I would play, and I mean, this just gives you an idea of the shit that I played this year. The 3rd worst game I played was Toddler Simulator. And
you said that you said it before, and I didn't want to believe you, but I think you're right. I think you did play way more shit than I did this year.
I played so much shit this year, like just utter dreck. Like Toddler Simulator was just a pile of garbage. Like it was unfinished garbage. But you know what? Like it was one of those things where it was just so bad and broken that it was actually funny. Like, and especially like I couldn't be too mad because I knew like I put myself in this situation, you know, like I asked for it. So
right.
I couldn't be too mad about playing it. Like it is a dog shit game. I do not recommend giving a penny to play this game. If it were free, maybe, but that's it. Yeah, but even then, that is the 3rd worst game I played this year. 2nd worst game of the indie arcade that I played, Mars Troopers. It was just so.
Oh, I forgot about Mars Troopers.
Mars Troopers. It's an on-rails shooter, which I hate already. And it was just so repetitive. There was no way to like heal or kill the enemies. Like the health items were so rare, like you would die over and over again, and you had to play this stupid level all over again. It was boring and frustrating, and I hated it. I absolutely hated it. But Justin, did not hate it nearly as much as I hated the number 1 game that I played this year that was the worst. Indie arcade, regular arcade, out of the arcade, any year. The worst game I played was Tale of Palmy.
Yeah, if you want to hear a good rant, go back to the episode. That was episode 70, Dungeons and D-pads, when we talked about Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes.
Chris really laid into that game.
I'm not going to rehash it. Like Justin said, go back, re-listen to that rant. But yeah, oh man, that game, I am not a fan of. I am not a fan of.
You know, I'm surprised Maria the Witch is in your top 3. I remember that being pretty terrible for you as well.
I mean, compared to everything else, like, it was bad, but it wasn't worse than those other games that I played. Like, ultimately, it was just kind of harmless. And I mean, even then, like, there are games that I played that I know were just, like, objectively bad. Like, oh, what was that? I forget the name of that cat game that was, like, bricks.
Cat Catch.
Cat Catch. Yeah, Cat Catch. Like, that wasn't necessarily a well-polished or great game in its own right, but it was still kind of fun. Like, it was playable. Like, for what it was, I had a good time with it. So, I mean, like, it doesn't have to be, like, a fully polished experience. Yeah, it was just, I just want playability. That's all I ask for.
You also played Chinbu's Adventure this year. Man, I was dirty to you this year.
You were wretched this year to me. I don't know what I did to you to deserve this. Well, actually, no, that's not true. But there's a lot that I deserve playing those games. But I definitely got the short end of the stick with Indie Arcade this year. I'll have to be a lot crueler to you next year.
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have to prepare for that.
All right. But
all right.
You know what? Whether they're bad games, whether they're good games, Indie Arcade, I feel like, is always my favorite segment. Like, I always have fun with that.
Yeah, it was always fun. It always just fun to get an experience on things that might suck, then they don't, and then they might be good but they suck, or they might suck and yep, they absolutely suck.
Yeah, plus it's just nice to shine a spotlight on a lot of those indie games that otherwise might go overlooked.
Yeah, absolutely. Ah, but yeah, it was a great year. I kind of can't believe it's over already. I remember when year two started of PAR, and just like you don't know what's ahead. Like are we going to keep doing this? Are we going to hit a tipping point? Are we going to get to another Game of the Year celebration at the end of the year? You never know. And here we are, and I think that's a great sign. I think everybody's still very interested in the pod. I think the inclusion of the website was just great. Just to give people another avenue to kind of express their opinions about games, and looking forward to next year. There's a lot of great stuff that we did, and a lot of stuff we have to improve on as well. And I'm looking forward to the challenge for 2019.
Yeah, this year has definitely been a bit of a challenge. Like you pointed out, it's been harder for us to get out episodes this year versus last year, but that's due to a lot of various issues kind of behind the scenes. But next year, we're hoping to kind of get a little bit of a better grip on things, and we'll be able to we're going to still keep churning out episodes for you, the faithful listeners out there. I don't know. Like I'm just really excited to see how the pod goes. Like Justin, like you said, getting to this point where we have our Game of the Year show. Like we've had 2 Game of the Year shows now, including this one, and that's remarkable. Like I don't think we've had any one project that we've worked on that we've stuck with for as long as we have this podcast. And I've got no intentions of letting it go so easily. So I'm excited to see how far we take this bad boy going into the new year.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm so happy to hear that. And yeah, I agree. It's crazy to have a project that we've started and that's been this long, and ongoing. So yeah, I'm excited. But yeah, that was a great retrospective. What do you say we take a quick break, and when we come back, we will dive into honorable mentions of the year and then go into the top 10.
Oh yeah.
Welcome back to Press A Repeatedly's Game of the Year episode finale. Justin Tomasello here with Christopher Gold. And Chris, it's time for us to talk about some honorable mentions of the year. Some games that didn't make the top 10, maybe some games that weren't eligible this year, games that didn't come out this year, older games that we just wound up playing this year rather than the year that they came out, all that kind of stuff. We're going to list some and talk about them a little bit. And why don't you go ahead and kick us off here?
All right, so a couple of my own personal honorable mentions for this year. These are games that I played, didn't necessarily vote for this year, not because they were bad, just because the top 10 list became a little bit crowded. Marvel's Spider-Man came out in September, and I picked it up and played it, and it was a very fun game. Like, it's not a very long game, but it's kind of a collect-a-thon type game where you zip around Manhattan and you get to be Spider-Man, and save the day. You fight bad guys, and it was a lot of fun. But I don't know, like I felt like the mechanics were taking a bit too long for me to get a handle on. Um, Fighting it was just like it was a little disconnecting to be Spider-Man and fighting just gangs of random thugs and getting my ass kicked by these just random kids who like dropped out of high school, and they're like, hey, it's Spider-Man. Like they're trying to break in through the back door at the candy shop, and Spider-Man shows up and he's like, hey, what are you kids up to? Doo-ba-doo-ba-doo. And they pull out guns and just blow him away. Spider-Man's like, oh shit. Like, I was like, that doesn't feel a lot like Spider-Man. But it was still a lot of fun. That's a game like I don't want to go overlooked this year. Like if you have the time, you have the money, pick it up. It really is a fun time, even if you're not necessarily, Justin, a superhero fan.
Yep, that's me.
Let me see other honorable mentions for me. Let me see. I just had this list. Chasm. Again, I voted. I didn't necessarily vote for it, but that was one of the many Metroidvania games that came out this year. That was a ton of fun. A Way Out. This was the game that Justin, you and I played for. In fact, you voted for it as part of the Game of the Year list. This game. I really wish like we did like some sort of streaming or something, or had some sort of audience for playing this game, because we had a blast playing this game and we didn't even finish it. Like we still got to beat it.
Yeah, we absolutely are going to do that at some point soon, hopefully. But yeah, I totally agree. It was so much fun. Like, yeah, it was weird. Like the story was corny at parts and the writing wasn't great, but it was just so fun about like the things that could happen in that game and the various ways in which we died. And Chris and I were talking earlier before we started recording. We were kind of reminiscing about how there was a part where it was either you or me, but had to jump to the other person. And the other person had to press A to catch their hand as they jumped, and the timing was not correct, and the catch was not made, and the player just fell to his death and jumped.
He just jumped way down this cliff that's like hundreds of feet deep, and he just jumped. It's like slow mo, and we missed the button press, and they just went. They're dead, and like we were dying laughing because it was just so silly. Like, oh man, that is a fun game, definitely fun game. If you have a friend out there who you would like to have a crazy good time with, that is a great game to pick up. And also Sea of Thieves. Sea of Thieves. That's a game that was I feel like. Again, and I said this when the game first came out, I feel like it reminds me a lot of No Man's Sky, where the game initially came out and a lot of people were like, oh, what is this? It's not great. This isn't what I thought it was going to be. But as time has gone on, the game has slowly been adding more and more bits and pieces to it. And a lot of people who play the game now say, hey, this game is actually a lot of fun. Like, I'm having a good time with it. So yeah, I feel like Sea of Thieves is becoming that game that I anticipated it was going to become. It's certainly not there yet, but yeah, if you want to be a salty pirate, sail in the seven seas, give it a look.
Yeah, absolutely. That's another one I want to check out. Hopefully at some point I may have to hop over to someone's house who's got an Xbox and check it out, because I'm just curious of not only how the actual game works, but how they've improved it with the latest patches and updates. So yeah, like you, I'm hearing a lot of good things about it, and I'm excited to see more of that.
All right, what are some honorable mentions that you've got?
So for me, I'm gonna start off with a couple games that came out last year that I didn't get to play until this year. And the first on my list, I remember I had started playing it like right in the beginning of 2018. It was right after we finished our Game of the Year pod for last year, and I was so mad that I played this game afterwards, because it totally would have been in my top 10, and that is SteamWorld Dig 2.
Yes.
Yeah, SteamWorld Dig 2 was just so much fun. I played the first one, which I enjoyed a lot, but SteamWorld Dig 2 was just better in every way. Everything that they added, they really nailed the sense of exploration. They kept giving you these upgrades that just made you get a little bit farther and explore a little bit more. Just great music, awesome artwork, really cool characters, a really good story, surprisingly, and just a lot of just fun combat and gameplay mechanics that never felt repetitive or stale. It was just, for me, it was a lot of fun, and yeah, I really regret not playing it last year because it would have been very high in my top 10.
It could have been game of the year, but you
It
blew
could.
it. You ruined its chances single-handedly, Justin.
Also in that vein, Tales of Berseria. It was a game that I've been wanting to play ever since it came out. I just never got around to it. I got it on sale on Steam this year for super cheap, and just started playing it, and like I'm just having a blast. I love the characters. The story in that game is really great. The dialogue is pretty good. The music's awesome. It's just a solid RPG. If you're a fan of any of the Tales games, you'll love it. The combat's fun. Like it's a lot of fun, and I have probably about 10 or 15 hours in it, and I was making great progress until Red Dead Redemption 2 came out, and I just stopped playing Tales. So I would love to hop back on that soon when I can, because I do want to finish that, and just see how that game ends. And then the other two, one is a game that came out a long time ago, Harvest Moon 64. I picked that game up during the summer on the Wii U Virtual Console because I just love playing Harvest Moon games during the summer. It was during a period of time where I was working overnights, and I remember, nights when I was off, I would be up and everybody else would be asleep. So it would just be me on the couch at like 3 o'clock in the morning, just chilling out, playing Harvest Moon 64. Maybe I run out to a Wawa for a sandwich or something, because that's the only thing that was open during that time. But come right back and play some more. And I must have logged like 30 or 40 hours into it during the summertime. I made it to the end of the second year, I think. And, it's funny because I remember that being as one of my favorite my favorite Harvest Moon game, actually. And I remember thinking, all right, to start playing this game again, 20 or however many years after it came out, it's going to be tough to get back into it. There's just going to be so many gameplay changes, or just the style of the game is so different. It's going to feel dated. And after like an hour or so, I just got sucked right back into it. And it was just kind of giving me this nostalgia feeling of back when I was a kid playing that game for the first time. And yeah, I'm just super stoked that I was able to kind of get back into that feeling again this year playing that game.
Yep, absolutely.
And then the last for me, but was also listed by a few other PAR members, would be Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, that just came out a couple weeks ago. Unfortunately, it is not eligible during for this year due to our rating system, which goes from December 2017 till the end of November 2018. And Smash came out on December 6th, so it just missed the window.
Yeah, it just missed the cutoff, unfortunately.
Yeah, Smash it's awesome. It's everything that you wanted out of a Smash game. It deserves the name Ultimate because there is just everything that could possibly be in a Smash game is in it. The single player campaign is really involved. It's really in depth, really long, and just a lot of fun. There's so many nods to Nintendo and other video games that are related in the series. There's so many small little like tropes and stuff that you see, so many little Easter eggs hidden around, and just a really creative single player campaign of how you go through this world map and the way the spirits work and who they represent in each fighter. It's just kind of complex and interesting and just a ton of fun. And it continues to be one of the best multiplayer games that's ever created. The online seems to be working pretty well for me so far, and it's just a lot of fun. Chris, I don't know if you've had a chance to play it yet, but if not, we totally need to have a Smash night.
I briefly played a little bit of it the other night with Lewis because he has a copy of the game, and I gotta say, like, I really love the feel of the game. I was still getting a little used to the controls because he gave me the Pro controller, like it was a Smash specific Pro controller, and I'll be honest, I'm not 100% used to playing with the Pro controller. Like it felt a little weird to me, and also like I don't know, did they do away with like the D-pad jump function in this game? Because I was like trying to jump with Yoshi by pressing the D-pad, and he just wasn't.
I'm not sure. I actually have the GameCube adapter, controller adapter, and I've been using the GameCube controller for when I play.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I don't know, but it's been a lot of fun so far. I really had a lot of fun because I tried out some of the newer characters. Like I was the Inkling girl. Let me see. I was my boy King DDD. So it's just a lot of fun. I'm not 100% sold on the Smash limit meter.
Yeah.
Like I'm not 100% sold on that just yet. I prefer the Smash Ball, but yeah, so far it's yeah, I like it. I still have to pick up the copy for myself, but ultimately, like I'm excited to get it. I still really want to get it.
Yeah, we need a PAR team Smash night. Everybody just hanging out and smashing because it's so much fun. And you can actually turn off that meter and just have the Smash Balls if you want to, which is cool. There's a lot of customization in the game that makes just for a lot of great matches as well.
And Sakurai, it really is true. Never ask him for anything ever again.
All right, moving on to some other PR members' honorable mentions. Gonna start with Bill Guthrie, who played South Park: The Fractured Butthole this year, and he absolutely loved that game. When you hear of South Park game, you don't really know what to think. It's going to be funny and goofy and racy or whatever, but you're probably not expecting like a solid RPG experience. And according to not only him but many other people that have played the game and have read it, the game is just a great in-depth strategy-driven RPG game. Bill played both this year, the Fractured Butthole and the one before it, Stick of Truth. And he was mentioning that the Stick of Truth is more like a traditional turn-based style RPG game, which was great. And the Fractured Butthole is more of a strategy style RPG game, kind of like your Fire Emblem. And he loved that one even more. Moving on to Nick. Nick, of course, he's been on the show earlier this year. He mentioned that he was playing a lot of Hollow Knight this year. Again, that came out in 2017. Chris, you had mentioned earlier that you were the only one who have played Hollow Knight last year and didn't really get its fair chance to shine last year.
Yeah, I had Hollow Knight ranked very highly on my list last year, but I was the only one who played it. And then this year, it came out on the Switch, and then everybody played it, and everyone's like, wow, this game is so good. Why didn't anyone mention anything about this game last year? And I'm just like, it's whatever. As long as people are actually playing, it's the same thing with A Hat in Time. That's another game that got a Switch release, and people were like, wow, this game is so great. And I'm like, I played that game months ago on the PC. Where was everyone praising the game then? But whatever. As long as people are playing these games and enjoying them, that ultimately is all that honestly matters. That's the thing that's most important. But
yeah.
I just want it on the record that I was on the wagon on those games before anyone else.
Yeah. Nick was hooked playing Hollow Knight. I was over his place watching him play a few nights, and the artwork in that game is so awesome and unique. And just the characters that are created in there, it's got a lot of challenge in it, a lot of great music and creepy environments, and just looks like a ton of fun. And it just really a game that really excels, I think, from its art direction. It really makes good sense of just the whole insect nature of the game, not only in the character design in the backgrounds, but the music and the sound effects. Like you hear like a lot of like creepy crawly stuff going on in the background that can really make you feel like your skin's kind of crawling here and there. And it's a hard game that you have to master a lot of fights and be okay with dying a lot. But like those games are built, they have a very tough difficulty, but they yield a great reward when you defeat that boss and move on to the next part. And it's just kind of like a what would you call, like a good for your soul kind of idea, right? Like you think you can't beat something, but then you beat it, and you're like, oh wait, I can do this. And it's very positive for you, in your mind playing the game.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying.
Yep. And then Will Crosby has got a bunch of games that he's played this year that didn't necessarily come out this year, but he just wanted to make note of. He's got XCOM 2, the great alien strategy shooter. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe for the Switch. I'm sure he's been playing a lot of multiplayer for that. Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. What Remains of Edith Finch, one of the games from last year that ranked pretty highly.
Yep, fantastic game. I had that ranked on my personal top 10 last year.
Yeah.
Just amazing story. Very interesting characters. Just solid story. I loved Edith Finch.
He's got Factorio, which I'm not familiar with that one. I'm not sure exactly what that is.
I'm not 100% sure what that is. We should have Will on the show to explain himself.
Yeah. He will be next year. I mean, he's absolutely will. I hope he's looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, we'll sit him down and we'll be like, so, what's this Factorio shit?
Explain yourself, mister.
Yeah, but no, we always have fun having Will or anyone else on the show. It's been too long.
He also has Smash Brothers, so, yep. There's a big list of honorable mentions from that games that were played this year.
All right. So I think it's time for us to briefly get into the top 10. But before we do, we have just a couple more honorable mentions for the games that just did not quite make the top 10 list.
Sure.
based on how the voting turned out. So really, we've got 2 games here I feel like that we can talk about as honorable mentions for just missing out on the top 10. The first one, and this one, it came in, what is it? Like, I would say 12th place with 14 points total, is The Awesome Adventures of Captain Spirit. This is the game by Don't Nod, the developers of the Life is Strange series, and this was the game that they had released. It was sort of like not quite, I guess, like a game. It was like almost a prequel demo almost, where we didn't really have any idea what Life is Strange 2 was going to be about, so they kind of slowly introduced us to the mechanics by showing us this young boy named Chris. No relations. and Chris, he's what would you say? He's like 7 years old, about.
Yeah, I'd say around there.
Yeah, he lives with his father. His mother is no longer. She's no longer living, and it's just like a really good exploration of Chris as he kind of retreats from the terrible things that are happening in his life, and he takes on the Captain Spirit persona, which is this superhero character that he's created for himself. And it's just really, really interesting. It's very smartly written. The game itself is not long at all, but by the end, like, you really feel for Chris. You really empathize with him and his situation. Like, there were a lot of times I just wanted to reach through the screen and give him a hug and be like, listen, man, it's going to be okay. It's going to be fine. And it's just like, it really tugs at your heartstrings, which just, to me, speaks so much about the writing talents at Don't Nod Studios. Like, they always knock it out of the park.
It's another example for me of what a short, brief experience can do in the realm of video games. A lot of people complain if a game is too short, or why would I spend money or something that's less than 5 hours or whatever. But this is something that I think it was about 2 to 3 hours to play completely, and it was just a nice experience. I remember I played it all in one night, just sitting in front of my TV, relaxing, and just having a good time. Like, going through the game and meeting the characters, and just there was, especially for fans of Life is Strange, there was some little nods to the first games and stuff in there. And at the end, it sort of sets up for the sequel to Life is Strange, 2. And overall, it was just a great experience for a couple hours. It was like watching a good movie, but it's a little bit more interactive than that, obviously. And it was just I remember that night being a really pleasant night playing that game, and I'm glad that it got some good representation this year for 2018.
Right. Unfortunately, it didn't quite rank highly enough on everyone's list to crack our top 10, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad game or it's not worthy of anything. It's certainly a fantastic game, very smartly written. If you're interested at all in the Life is Strange series, or if you want to dive into Life is Strange 2, I recommend picking up The Awesome Adventures of Captain Spirit first and just giving that a go.
All right.
All right, so now our next honorable mention is kind of a tough luck This is a tough luck honorable mention. Justin and I, as per the rules of our balloting system, whenever there are ties, Justin and I will debate between ourselves which game should surpass the other game. And unfortunately, we had a tie for 10th place between A Minute and Donut County with 15 points apiece. And after discussing it, after hashing it out ever so briefly, we decided to award 11th place to Donut County.
I'm very frustrated by this decision. Donut County was my personal number 3 game of the year. I absolutely love this game. It was one of my most anticipated games for 2018, way back in the first episode of this year. It's basically a game that's a little bit wonky, it's a little funky, it's a little weird. It kind of reminds a lot of people of the Katamari series. Basically you are controlling this hole in the ground that gets bigger with each item that falls into it, and you have to basically, get all of the items in a level down that hole to move on to the next level. But aside from that, there's just some really witty and funny writing, some really interesting characters that are really just kind of quirky and well designed, and just different species and races and stuff that just makes for a very lively world. It's a brief experience. It's only about 4 or 5 hours to play the whole thing, but it's just a ton of fun. The puzzles are they're not just getting items in holes. They get a little bit more interesting as you go and creative. And I just found the whole experience, just to be great. And I really enjoyed playing it this year. Like I said, it was my number 3 game of the year, and to have it just miss the top 10. Yeah, my bottom's a little burned over that one.
You found the whole experience to be great.
No, you're fired.
It's been a long time coming. But trust me, I understand the frustration. This is not something I wanted to do. Leave the game off the top 10 list. But by the rules of the balloting, we had to come to a compromise. And for me, Donut County, it's a game I've wanted to pick up. I just honestly haven't had the chance to yet. But it looks really interesting. It looks like it's a lot of fun.
It's on Switch now. Remember that. If you haven't played it, it is on the Switch.
It is currently on Switch. So if you haven't given it a shot, again, same thing with Captain Spirit. Just because it didn't make the top 10 list, and honestly, like considering it tied for 10th, like you could argue, and honestly, I would listen to that argument that it tied for 10th, so it technically made the top 10 list, like 10A, 10B
Yeah,
with Minute,
sure.
but but uh yeah, that's just the way it goes, unfortunately.
Fair enough.
Now, as for the 10th place game, that which we did award it to Minute, um, I argued that for me, Minute is like Donut County is more colorful, obviously, and it looks like it's more fun and silly with the raccoon character. But Minute, I felt like was a bit more innovative and interesting in its gameplay design, where you have the sword and it curses you, and you have 60 seconds to live. So you have a minute to live. And in that minute, you have these very short you have these short objectives that you need to complete. Like, oh, you need to collect the rocks for this one person, and it will open up this gate, and then your character will die. Well, then you'll come back to life, and you'll go to where that gate was, and it's already open because you've given the rocks or whatever to that one character already. So then you progress through the gate, and that's kind of how the game goes. And you get like more and more challenges that allow you to explore deeper and deeper into the world and figure out, okay, what exactly is going on? How do I stop this curse? I felt like it was sort of a minimalist design in terms of like the characters and like how the world looks, but the way the world was designed, how everything was mapped out, I felt like it was really clever and it was really interesting the way that the gameplay was implemented in Minute. I just really really enjoyed what it brought to the table, and for me, that's kind of what made me give it the edge for 10th place.
I would agree with all those points. Personally, I was starting to find the 60-second time limit to get a little frustrating. I think a lot of that was due to me not really paying full attention to the map of where I was at, because I was frequently getting lost, and every time I thought I was going in the right direction, it would be when the 60 seconds would run out, and I would get morphed back to my last save point. And in the beginning it
Right.
wasn't a big deal, but it started to wear on me a little bit. But I still wanted to eventually go back to that game because I do think the idea of it was pretty cool. And it made me, a lot of it kind of reminded me of Link's Awakening, which is one of my favorite Zelda games. And that alone had kept my interest in the game. So I understand that it's innovative and a lot of fun, and I think it deserves the number 10 spot on this list, as bitter as I am that Donut County got stuck at 11.
Right. And that's actually a good point. I feel like that game, Minute, wore a lot of its Zelda references on its sleeve. Like, there was a lot of Link's Awakening in that game. The countdown timer certainly reminds you a lot of Majora's Mask. And I think for you, there's definitely a bit of bias in terms of that the game had a countdown clock to it, because you don't really like timers in your games. You
I
don't
do
like
not.
you
That is true.
you do not like being timed when playing games. So that certainly can be a factor for you not rating Minute as highly as some other members would rate it. But that's fine. I mean, again, these games tied with one another. And just because we awarded Minute with 10th place does not mean that it is a better game than Donut County or vice versa. Yeah, I mean, they're both really great, unique games in their own right. It's just that for our purposes, one of them had to be 10th and the other had to be 11th.
Yep, fair enough. But we have 9 more games to list, and let's keep rolling here. In 9th place for the top 10 games of the year, we have Moonlighter.
Moonlighter. Now, this is a game that I don't recall really playing much of this year. I don't think I played it at all this year.
I also have not played it, but it was one that I wanted to play all year, all during the year. I just never got around to it, unfortunately. Um,
We did play a game this year based on moons, right? What was it called? It was like Moon Fighter or something.
Moon Hunter, I think you're
Moon
thinking
Hunter, Moon Hunters, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
we're hunters on the moon.
Yeah, that came out last year, I believe.
Ah, okay, that's
Yeah.
where the confusion lies.
But yeah, Moonlighter was on Zul's list. It was on Nick's list. It was on Matt's list. A lot of love for Moonlighter. If you're not sure what it's about, basically it is a top-down, I guess you could say, adventure game that has it's got a dual purpose of dungeon crawling and then also like a shop management sim where you're finding items when you go dungeon crawling and then you're bringing them back to the surface of your town and your shop and you are selling those items in like a kind of like shopkeeping mini game that can help you get money and experience and stuff, and it just looks like it's a ton of fun and really creative design.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of fun, and I mean, like Zool, Nick, Matt. I mean, I really trust those guys' opinion when it comes to playing these video games, and like I don't know, like that is a game that I have wanted to give a try to, and I mean, hey, it's our ninth place game of the year, so kudos to Moonlighter, and yeah, we honestly should pick it up and play it at some point.
Oh, I definitely am. That also just came out on the Switch back in November, and I'm totally going to be picking that up soon.
Everything came out on the Switch, Justin. That's just the style anymore.
That's the style at the time.
It's a style at the time. All right, so now eighth place and seventh place, we again had a tie. Not as significant as the 10th, 11th place tie because, I mean, these guys are both on the list, but this is more for bragging rights. Our eighth place game for this year was Assassin's Creed Odyssey
Yes.
with 20 points.
Also
Now,
a game that neither of us have played.
yeah, which for me specifically is a little surprising because I love the Assassin's Creed games. I mean, I loved like playing the original games, like the Ezio trilogy from long ago. I played Assassin's Creed 3, which wasn't 100% great, but I actually did pick up and play some of Origins, which came out last year. That was a lot of fun. The map was really big, and honestly, like it just came out with in the middle of so many other great games that it just kind of got lost in the sauce. And I was worried that Assassin's Creed Odyssey was going to kind of face the same fate this year, but it actually, it actually successfully made the list. Bill, that was actually his game of the year this year, was Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Yeah, he had a lot of love for that game, and he also is a big Assassin's Creed fan. Now, I remember a few episodes ago, you and Butch were talking about the length of games and the size of games, and you had some words to say about Assassin's Creed Odyssey. The beginning of it, it takes a little bit to get going, right?
Right. That's from what I was reading. Excuse me. From what I was reading, from a lot of reviews that had come out, because that's what we were discussing was how big games were, and a lot of reviews were saying that it was taking hours to actually get into Assassin's Creed. Like it took hours. I think it was like maybe 14 hours before the game actually opens up and you can go around and do whatever. And I remember thinking like that was just incredible. Like that's just how much is too much, when playing these games. But honestly, for a game like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, where you've got so much room to run around and explore and kill, and I honestly, like, if I'm being perfectly honest, I don't know all that much about the story. Again, Assassin's Creed Odyssey is a game that I still have to pick up and play for myself, but it's a lot of fun. I see, Butch and Bill both gave it high votes on their personal lists, which is what got Assassin's Creed Odyssey up to where it is right now. So I trust both of their judgment. I really want to pick the game up and give it a shot myself. And yeah, I'm excited to see what they have to offer.
All right, which brings us to the next game. This is number 7 on the list.
Also with
And
20 points.
yes, this was the other tie. And this is Octopath Traveler.
Yeah, Octopath Traveler. Now, this I played the demo. It was like the 3-hour demo that came out. What was it? A month before the full release of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I unlocked a couple characters. I started out as the thief. I don't necessarily remember the name off the top of my head, but the one thing that really jumped out at me about Octopath was just the look and the sound of the game. Like, this is a game that just looks incredible. Like, it looks like it's standard, like, 2D pixel art sprites, but it's set in sort of like this almost 3D-ish type of environment where the lighting almost makes it look like you're looking into a diorama versus looking down at a flat screen where these 2D characters are just walking around on top of it. Like, it looks like a full environment with depth to it.
Oh yeah, totally. And if you're unfamiliar, this game is developed by Square. It is the team that worked on the Bravely Default games, which I absolutely love. And it was kind of like a new style for them to try, where it's taking like the awesome sprite based graphics that everybody loves from those classic RPGs, but giving it that 3D twist that you were just talking about, Chris. And like in your head, you're thinking that, how does that work? But then when you see it in person and when you're actually playing the game, it's beautiful. It's just a really cool, unique style. And of course, the gameplay is a lot of fun. The battle system is great. It has that stacking combo that was similar to the battles in the Bravely Default series. It's got 8 playable characters that you can pick anyone to start with, and each one has their own story that starts on a different part of the world. And then you can meet other characters and just kind of grow the party from there. When I was playing the demo earlier this year, I remember I started off as one character, and it was a pretty cool story. I wasn't really that into it, but then I switched to another character, and I was 100% like invested. Like, this really awesome character with a really great story, great dialogue, a lot of cool action that started off in the beginning of her tale. And I remember I played. I think the demo timeline was 3 hours, and I played that all in one sitting because I was having so much fun. And regrettably, I have not picked up the game yet. When you do, you can continue from where you left off on the demo, which is great. I just haven't gotten around to picking that up yet, and so I really want to at some point. Lewis actually had this as his number 1 game of the year. He absolutely loved it, and I think that's for great reason. If you're an RPG fan, if you're a classic RPG fan, I would definitely recommend checking out Octopath Traveler.
The next 2 games on our list are it was our third and final tie among our top 10 games, which I think is interesting because both of these games did not necessarily come out this year, but we decided to allow both these games to be listed for voting purposes because both games received huge expansions this year, which radically altered the identity of both games. And so the people who voted for the games, requested that they be included because it was so drastically different from what it was at its initial release. So we decided to allow it. And coincidentally enough, both these games tied for, 6th and 5th on our list. 6th place, coming in at 22 points, is Destiny 2 Forsaken.
Yeah, so I believe Forsaken is the first of multiple DLCs that came out this year. I could totally be wrong. I did not play anything that came out this year for Destiny 2 personally, but Will had Destiny 2 Forsaken as his number one game of the year, and Dave had it at I think number 3, and a lot of people that I know, some people that I work with, some things I've read online have said that Forsaken is a ton of fun. It just really enhances the actual Destiny 2 experience. Destiny 2, if you remember, I think was our collective number 3 last year. And,
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
yeah, and this is just adding more to it. I think if I did play this, I would really enjoy it. I didn't want to spend the money on all of these expansions because I wasn't 100% sure I was going to be able to keep up with it, to make up for the value of these expansions. But, I really enjoyed Destiny 2, and I think more of that would be a lot of fun. I can see why it's been rated so highly. I know the PC players are actually having a lot of a great time playing. The PC port seems to be pretty great with awesome controls with mouse and keyboard for better aiming and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the team of course is doing great with all their updates and their weekly specials that kind of come out for the player. And yeah, I can totally see why it's still so active this year. And I think it's important to note that games as a service are only becoming bigger as we kind of move on here in the video game world, and I think we're going to start seeing them a lot more. And I don't think it's going to be surprising to start seeing games that came out, a year or two ago that are being serviced so well that they're going to start, being some of the most played games of the following year or the year after that. I mean, you could even look at Fortnite, which came out last year, and it's way more popular now than it was when it initially came out.
Yeah, that game is just a complete phenomenon at this point. And yeah, like the way I feel about a lot of these expansions or paid DLC, like if it's a multiplayer experience and I know my friends are going to invest in the experience, I might drop the money so I can have the chance to play with them. But just to play the expansion for just the sake of the game, I feel like Destiny 2, like when we played that game last year, it was a lot of fun for the amount of time that we put into it. But it just, I don't know, like I felt like I know the game got stale and I know the expansions like add more to it, but it's certainly something that I would want to invest more into if I knew that like everyone else was investing into it,
Yep, absolutely. So that brings us to the number 5 game, which we said earlier was tied with 22 points with Destiny 2. And that, of course, is No Man's Sky Next, the giant update to No Man's Sky that came out this year that added things like multiplayer, character customization, third-person view, just a whole new texture pack for everything. They changed how the buying system works. Just a plethora of additions and changes that were added to this game. It came out this year, and it got everybody stoked to be playing No Man's Sky again. And it's not just like this is a game that kind of came out and people forgot about. This was a game that came out to a lot of controversy, that angered a lot of fans, that lost, I'm guessing, a lot of money. It was a big deal. Hello Games was under a lot of fire. The creator of the game was getting death threats. It was that big of a deal.
Which just as an aside,
course.
is never okay.
Yes.
I feel like we should always have that disclaimer whenever I hear that game developers are getting death threats over a video game. That no matter how disappointed you are in a video game, sending people death threats is never ever okay for any reason whatsoever.
Of course, that was blown out. Of course, the video game fan base at most times can be absolutely ridiculous and just do stupid shit like that. But the thought process of a game that was this chastised to be able to not only convert and become a extremely popular game this year with this update, literally a game changer. Um, but to come back from the depths of the way it did, for that team to stick with it after how horrible their launch went, and that the year after that, and just the amount of negative press that they had to deal with, to have like a fire lit under their asses and be like, all right, we are gonna fix this. We are gonna put out that game that we promised. We are gonna make you want to play this game again, and to actually land on that promise and make it work and continue to put out updates. There was another update that came out, I think, a month or two ago that added features like swimming and a whole bunch more stuff to the game to get people playing again. I think is so impressive and so well deserved, and I'm just super happy for that team at Hello Games. And when I was playing that in July when it came out, I have an article about the multiplayer on PressItRepeatedly.com that I think it could be a little bit better, but still just a lot of fun to be able to play with my brother at like 3 o'clock in the morning, flying through space and just running away from alien bugs that are about to explode or whatever. It's just been an absolute blast, and I think the story of the game, coupled with just how fun it is to play now, I think it 100% deserves to be at number 5 on this list.
Yeah, I agree 100%. After all the changes, after all the shit that they put up with, it would have been extremely easy and understandable for Hello Games to be like, all right, let's just punt and call it a day with this. People aren't enjoying it. But no, they stuck with it. They pulled through, they put in the work, and they put out the game that they wanted to put out and that they knew that people were expecting from them. So it's standing ovation, bravo to them. Ordinarily, we wouldn't include a game that has been out for a couple years. But again, as I mentioned earlier, this game is so radically different from what it was from release that we felt like we had to include it this year. We really didn't have much of a choice.
Plus, you could play as a giant gross fish person.
I mean, what more could you ask for? I mean, you can't have a much better sales pitch than that, folks. All right, so now we're into our top 4.
Okay, so now here's where the point value starts to skyrocket a bit.
Yeah, things are jumping. This is where things start jumping, because this is where a lot of people's game of the year and third place games start factored in. So at number 4 with 49 points, we have Monster Hunter World.
Yeah, which is crazy because, again, you know how the Monster Hunter fan base was very, I don't want to say small because it wasn't, but it was the same amount of people. There was a Monster Hunter fan, right, who played every Monster Hunter game, loved them, so much. But everybody else around it was just kind of yeah, I don't know, it's not for me. I'm not getting into that game, whatever. This was the first game. It took a lot, and Capcom wanted this to eventually happen, but this was the first Monster Hunter game that kind of broke through. That not only the hardcore Japanese fan base are playing, or well, it's huge in Japan, but in the U.S. it was just a smaller amount of people that enjoy Monster Hunter games. But this was the game in the franchise that got everyone's attention. It came out earlier this year. A lot of people were playing it, having a great time. People who love Monster Hunter loved the game. People who never played Monster Hunter before were loving the game. It was a console experience with awesome graphics. A lot of the Monster Hunter games that have been released recently were on the DS or 3DS, and it kind of alienated a lot of the, I guess you could say, more hardcore gamers. But this experience was one for everybody, and it shows in this list. It was in almost everybody's list this year, and I mean, it was a big deal.
It was a very big deal. This game did not make it onto my personal top 10 list. Just because, like, I don't know. Like, I know this was the most accessible that Monster Hunter has ever been, but I don't know. I couldn't quite get into it. Like, the only time I really enjoyed myself when playing the game is when I was playing with you guys, when I was exploring the multiplayer aspects of the game. But even then, the game made it pretty difficult for to join other people's sessions. It wasn't very intuitive. It just I don't know. It was just very frustrating. Uh, I don't know the game. I just don't know. I just don't think the Monster Hunter franchise is for me. Like it's just not necessarily my thing. Which I don't know. It's just a little disappointing to me because I want it to be my thing. You know what I'm saying? Like I want to enjoy it more than I actually do, but I don't know. Just something about it just doesn't click with me.
Yeah, no, I understand. It was definitely a little bit lower for me as well on the list. I agree 100% with just the multiplayer and matchmaking was a little bit, you know, too intricate than it needed to be, and just it didn't 100% sink me into it. But then again, no real Monster Hunter has for me, and it's a personal thing, you know. Like I said, a lot of people will love Monster Hunter and play any one, and then some people will just kind of this doesn't really sit right with them. But I appreciate that this game was able to get so many people who would never even give Monster Hunter like a look, to get them excited and playing and purchasing the game. Sales of the game were absolutely crazy when it first came out back in the beginning of the year.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that led to Capcom releasing Monster Hunter Generations on the Switch later this year, just to get more of the American fan base involved in Monster Hunter. And I think it just really bodes well for the future of Monster Hunter. So definitely appreciate what Capcom has done and for that series with this release from this year.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, Justin. It is time to get into our top 3.
Yeah, and if you've been playing along at home, you probably know what these 3 next games are, but you're not 100% of the order. Well, we weren't either until we put this list together, and you're about to find out.
Yes. So, coming in at third place for our 2018 Game of the Year with 56 total points, Celeste.
Yes, Celeste. This was number 1 for Chris, Elena, and Matt this year.
Yeah, and it also was Will's third overall favorite game this year. Which I mean, I don't know. Like I just don't know what to say. I was discussing this earlier tonight with Elena because it was her game of the year and it was also my personal game of the year. This is just a game like I played a lot. I played a few games this year that really stood out and stuck with me, but I feel like of all those games, Celeste is going to be the one that is most memorable and that sticks closest to my heart and soul. Like I remember, like I played the game when it first came out months and months ago, like almost a full year ago at this point. I think it came out in February, and it blew me away because I remember a lot of people online like Patrick Klepek and a few other game journalists were talking about, oh, this game Celeste, it just came out on the Switch, and I was like, let me give it a shot, and it blew me away. What was most interesting to me about this game is it is a brutally hard platformer. Like it is exceptionally hard, no doubt about it. But I just felt like the way the story was written, the way the characters were written, the way the levels were designed, I kept feeling like, yeah, I was dying over and over and over again, but I kept having that feeling of, I can do this. I just have to keep pushing myself. I can succeed if I just keep trying. And yeah, I got frustrated a lot of times, but ultimately I was able to persevere in the end and push through. And I actually beat the game without assist mode, which I consider to be like one of my top accomplishments like ever
Yeah,
in
certainly.
gaming. I was actually able to beat it without assist mode. But what's great about it is it does have that assist mode. So if people are struggling with the game, if they're having trouble, you can adjust certain elements of the game, like the spikes that instant kill you. You can turn that off. You can slow the game down a little bit so you've got more time to react to various elements, like the moving elements of the game. Like the game does its best to make sure that you play the game, you beat the game, and you have a good time playing the game. And again, like I was talking to Elena tonight, there are a lot of games this year that explore various themes and they're designed around central themes. I don't feel like any one game does it better or does executes it more successfully than Celeste. Everything revolves around that theme of like the main character Madeline is dealing with anxiety and depression, and she has to sort of not just overcome these obstacles that are in her life, but to accept them for what they are. You know, because she's trying to, in the game metaphorically, has her trying to climb a mountain, but it's that mountain is a metaphor for anyone having any challenges or struggles in their day-to-day life. It might be, trying to get that job that you want, or maybe it's trying, just accomplishing any one goal that seems insurmountable. And as long as like you accept yourself, you can you can overcome any challenge. As long as you have, and with some help along the way, you can accomplish anything. And yeah, the game is hard, but the game is designed to be hard because these goals that you're trying to achieve are not easy. It is a struggle. You are going to fall, but you have to get up and keep going time and time again. And I feel like the way the game is designed, the level design, the character design, the soundtrack, which honestly, if you haven't listened to the soundtrack, you need to like hop on YouTube or something and just listen to the whole thing. It is fantastic. Justin, I'm not a big music guy, but that soundtrack is exceptional. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Everything about this game revolves around that central theme, and I feel like it just executes everything flawlessly. Yeah, I honestly like. I just personally have no negative things to really say about Celeste. Um, and yeah, that's why it's my personal game of the year. I'm happy to see that it made number 3 overall. I certainly understand why it came in third behind the 2 games that are ahead of it. But yeah, Celeste is a game that if you haven't tried it out yet, please, 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 please give it a try. Give it a shot without assist mode at first. If you need to use assist mode, please by all means go ahead. It's just such a good game. Please give it a try.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much more I can add to that. That was a very
I'm sorry. I just love that. I love the game to death. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I felt like I had sort of the same spiel back when the game first came out, and I talked about it after I beat it. I can't talk about the game at length without talking about it glowingly. It's
yeah,
just
no,
so
there's
good. It's
nothing
just
wrong with
so
that.
so good. I love it to death.
I also can't add to it because I sadly have not even played this game at all yet this year, which I know is a crime. But I would really love to do so, and I'm looking forward to the chance to do it soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like my message back just then was to you too. Yeah, give it a shot and yeah, see how it is. But fair warning, the game is brutally hard. You are going to die a lot playing this game.
Yeah, most definitely.
All right. Enough about Celeste. Justin, our top 2 games were
So
separated by 2 points. 2
when we
points.
were tallying up the votes, these 2 games and Celeste, until towards the end when the other 2 started to pull away. But they were kind of just battling back and forth for that number one spot, and we really did not know. It came down to the last person that we tallied, which was Butch, and his final score was what settled, not only the top 10, but the top 2 games of the year.
Yeah, essentially looking at it, him and Dave, he had the 1-2 that was consistent with our game of the year list. And since Butch was the last one that we added in, Butch's 1-2 is pretty much what established our 1-2 in our game of the year list. So this is Butch's game of the year, pretty much.
Yeah, so with that being said, in that 2-point differential, in second place with 87 points, we have Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah, man, what can you really say about this game? Like, it is just absolutely fantastic. The environments of the game, like, it looks and feels like you are riding around in the frontier. Like, the environments are fully realized. The wildlife just looks and sounds amazing. The character models, the human characters, just the world feels full of life, and you're just here to take all of that life away. And it's just it's like the game is just, it's so open world and just so amazing. I'm having so much fun with this game. I'm just having a blast.
I don't think I've ever been as immersed by a game in my life than I have been when I was playing Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah. Now Justin, this game was your game of the year, and it was Zul's and Nick's game of the year also.
Yes, Red Dead Redemption 2 was also on my most anticipated games of the year list way back in the beginning of the year. And, I absolutely loved the original Red Dead Redemption. I came to that game late, and when I played through it, I was just hooked and, just moving through that story little bit by little bit and getting to know John Marston and all of the characters, that you meet along the way. Again, really feeling immersed in that Western, cowboy era, which I'm always a huge fan of. This game was just so much up my alley. And what excelled it for me was not only the fact that it was just, a great game to play, an awesome open world game with tons of options. The story was just fantastically written. The dialogue was the most realistic I've ever seen in a game. I think that Rockstar is the king of having really great, interesting dialogue, just from bantering to really touching scenes that actually happen in the game, and to helping develop all of the characters in the game. If you are unfamiliar with Red Dead Redemption 2, you are playing as Arthur Morgan, who is one of Dutch van der Linde's crew. Dutch van der Linde is the main bad guy from the original Red Dead Redemption, and Dutch's crew is quite large. There are, I haven't counted them, but there's got to be at least around 20 people that roll with him, and each one of them is so fleshed out in this game. And you are doing quests with pretty much everybody from the crew, all that have their own ideals about what's going on and things that are important to them and different things they need help with. And it just, in meeting with them and hearing all their stories and going through the adventure together, you just kind of fall in love with these characters. Like, you really do feel like one big family, and it makes what happens in the story just so much more important and touching in a way. And then when it all comes to the climax at the end, it's just a very emotional and touching experience that I'll totally remember for years to come. And just it's just it's like watching a really great, well developed movie, but there's so much more than that because you are interacting with it with the game the whole way. And on top of that, I mean, there's so much more. Like it's not just the story and the characters that you meet, but like I said before, the open world is huge. There is so much to do, so many side quests to do. The graphics are incredible. The soundtrack is amazing. It's just got this really awesome like Western feel to it. It's just I could go on and on about this game. There are of course some caveats. Chapter 5, I think we've talked about it on the pod before. It's very strange. There are parts of the writing throughout the game where I think pacing becomes a big issue. It's few and far between, but it is there, and it did take me out of the experience at different parts. But luckily, the game ends super strongly and kind of makes you forget about some of that stuff in the middle. That probably didn't need to be there in the first place. And
Right.
on top of that, there's a very nice surprise, I guess I could say, towards the end of the game that is like almost a bonus for a lot of players, and it's really cool. And it's actually pretty lengthy as well, which I wasn't expecting. So there was just so much for this game to offer, and now I'm starting to ramble a little too much, but you know that's why I voted it as my personal favorite game of the year.
Yeah, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Like Red Dead Redemption 2 to me, like I mean, heck, this I've been just as fully immersed in this game as anyone has at this point. And I mean, I've talked before about how I'm going around and I'm playing the game, and I'm having a good time. I'm just doing what I do. But in the same token, just like taking a step back and looking at it objectively, for me, the game works for a lot of the reasons that you talked about. Like you feel immersed in the game, you feel immersed into the story. But I also feel like there's sort of a disconnect between the actual gameplay and the story elements of the game. Like, I mean, Arthur is like, he's very loyal to Dutch, and he's like, oh, like we do what we need to survive. We just don't kill, unless it's absolutely necessary. And then, that cutscene will end, and I'll run out and I'll find some guy who just happens to be riding past on a wagon, and I'll throw a fire bottle at his wagon and light the wagon, and his horses on fire. And, then I'll just ride off into the sunset. And I don't know, like, I know, like, I'm controlling Arthur to be that way, but the game is allowing me to play this way and to do these things, and I don't know, like, it just feels like the game is asking a lot of me to be like, hey, yeah, you can explore, you can run around and do these things, but there is a certain way that you should be doing things, because otherwise it just doesn't make sense in the context of Arthur, who's like gets in some people's faces like, we're not killers, we don't just kill wantonly, and I'm listening to him say this, and I'm like, Arthur, we've been killing wantonly this whole time. That's all we know how to do. It just like, plus like the way that the controls of the game feel, like there are times where, heck, literally just yesterday, I was in Saint Denis and I was trying to get on my horse, and I pressed the button to climb onto the horse just as some guy happened to decide, hey, I'm going to walk between him and his horse. So the context button changed from get on your horse to choke this guy out to try to rob him. So out of nowhere, I started choking this guy, and I'm like, whoa, wait. Like, I didn't want this to happen, so I let the guy go, and next thing I know, boom, the whole city turns red because, a crime was reported. And I don't know what is wrong with the police force at Saint Denis, but they are just like blowing their whistles. They're coming out of every corner. They're just firing wildly at me into the crowd, trying to bring me down, and I'm running for my life. I'm like, fellas, please, like I didn't do anything. I didn't mean it. And they're just like, no, it's too late for you. Get them, boys. We're bringing you down. And they're just boom, 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 boom. And I'm riding my horse desperately out of town. And like oh man, I don't know. Like it's like yeah, and like it was an interesting experience and it was fun and I was able to get away but it was a situation that I didn't ask for. The game I feel like works in spite of a lot of shortcomings that it has, like specifically with the controls and the way the gameplay can feel disjointed from the way the story goes. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm having a blast with the game, but I don't know. I feel like there's just too many different elements that go into it that keep it from being my personal game of the year.
Yeah, no, I understand that, and I've also have had frustrations with that the game. We've talked about how the shooting just doesn't feel great in that game. The menu controls are clunky, and interactions like that you've had, I've had as well. And I've noted that, and I will think of that in my overall ranking of the game. But I think what the game encompasses as a whole, especially through the entire experience of playing from start to finish, for me personally, was the best of the year, and that's where
Yep.
it's at.
All right. Well, perfect. Which, Justin, that means it's time to reveal the 2018 PAR Game of the Year.
And that is Bubsy, Furry and Reloaded.
Congratulations, Bubsy. Come on up and accept your reward. Oh, wow. I had no idea I was even nominated. This is a great honor.
That's a surprisingly good Bubsy accent.
Thank you. But no. Get out of here, Bubsy. Oh, man. No. Our Game of the Year winner this year is God of War.
Yeah, there it is with 89 total points. God of War is your 2018 Game of the Year. There's so much to say about this game. I don't know really where to begin. I guess I could just start with the fact that I have not played any of the prior God of War games, and I did not think I would be this interested in the game when I picked it up. But I was looking forward to it. I know when they first unveiled it a couple of E3s ago, and they showed some of the footage, I was like, all right, this game looks pretty cool. Don't really know what to expect, but I'm gonna hop in there and get it when it comes out. And there was just so much good about that game. The entire way that they created or crafted the Norse mythology into the story. I mean, we had an episode this year about it. Me and Dave were kind of talking about the Norse mythology, and just basically what God of War got right and what was similar to it, and I think honestly, I think that was one of our most interesting episodes of the year, and not only that, just the creative story, but the characters that they created, the beautiful world and landscapes, these awesome giant creatures that you were fighting. The combat was fantastic in the game. I mean, those combos felt so good. The way that you could use Atreus' arrows to help you out. Atreus having a kid in the game who's not annoying. I mean, alone that should earn the game, high praise. Just the overall experience of going through the different realms and meeting these crazy characters, just the whole mystic kind of fantasy feeling that the game provides you, I just found really endearing. The parts of the game later that I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a part in the game later that kind of ties into the previous games. which I thought was awesome, and I never even played the original game. So, players who have played the original games, were absolutely losing their minds at that part. But there was just a lot of excitement in this game, and just a ton of fun. And it was my personal number two. Chris, it was your personal number two. It was Dave and Bush's number one. It was Lewis and Will's number two. It was Matt's number three. Like this game was ranked highly for pretty much everybody across the PAR team, and it definitely deserves to win the Game of the Year for 2018.
I agree 100% with everything you just said. It absolutely deserves to be our Game of the Year this year. Unlike you, I had played the original games. I didn't play God of War 3, but I played God of Wars 1 and 2, and they were really fun, fantastic games in their own right. Fun for their time type games. Like if you played them today, they would certainly feel a bit dated, a little one-dimensional. And Kratos in those games, like he was a very one-dimensional character. His one focus is I want revenge. I want to kill the people who wronged me, and a lot of times in those games, like he would get his revenge, but he would also leave a lot of death and destruction in his wake. But he really, literally just did not care because he just wanted to get his revenge. If people suffer, as a result of him getting his revenge, then so be it. And he was like very like, very angry all the time. And it was just like, yeah, okay, whatever, Kratos. But this game, for them to go back and re-explore Kratos' character, and not just like explore his character, but also be like, hey, let's give him a son and let's explore that relationship. Like, that was really, really interesting because he's struggling not just to reconcile his past, like what he had done in his past life, but he's also struggling to be a good, caring father to Atreus. He's trying to teach him to be a better man than he was, and we explore that through the game. Like there's times where he succeeds, there are times where he fails, and just the way that they open up Kratos' character and gave him new life and depth. Like they honestly, like if we had our if we were still doing best new character of 2018 this year, I would have no problem with putting Kratos here, because even though he is a long established character, he just acts and looks and is such a different character today in this game than he was in the original games. Like it's just the level that they went to with him, and it wasn't just him, but all the other characters that they introduced in the game. You had the elves, you had Atreus. No, I'm sorry, you had the dwarfs, you had Atreus. You had the witch in the woods. Not spoiling anything. You had Balder. You just had so many unique and interesting characters introduced in this game, and
Yeah.
it's just like the game just felt like so big and so open, and the combat in this game was just so much fun. Like I don't think there was a better play mechanic this year than Kratos's Leviathan axe. Like I had so much fun whipping that around and slicing enemies, throwing that at switches or throwing that at bad guys, and then calling it back into your hands with that that like it whips back into your hand. Like it just felt so good. Like combat in the game was so much fun.
Yeah, and going back a little bit, you're so right about transforming Kratos' character and the challenge of putting him in a direction that you would never think to see him as. I mean, here it's this vengeful guy who's now has to raise a son and is visibly struggling throughout the game to kind of have that connection, and to not be too hard on him, to understand that he has a lot to teach this boy who just lost her mother in the beginning of the game, and they're going on this bonding trip to bury her ashes at the top of the mountain, and there's just so much symbolism in that. And there are moments of the game that just stand out so much in my mind. I remember there's a part where after a huge battle, you're on like this elevator thing, and you're trying to get out of this dungeon or wherever you're at, and Kratos finds this old bottle of wine, and he just like sits down relaxing, and he like takes the lid off, and he takes a sip, and then he like passes it to Atreus to like it's like your dad giving you a beer for the first time, and like Atreus thinks it's gross, of course, and they kind of like are like joking about it a little bit, and like that it's just such a touching like moment that you would never expect to get out of a video game, I guess. I guess now that's different because of how games are changing and how they're becoming more and more story based. But it was just so nice to see that, and just there were so many moments in that game that just stick out in my mind. I was talking, I think, with Butch a little bit earlier in the year when we were watching the Game Awards, and we were comparing God of War and Red Dead Redemption 2. And I said, I love the story of Red Dead Redemption 2, and there are just some really, really great moments in that game that, I felt super invested in. However, there are parts that totally took me out that could have been done better, that had pacing issues. I don't think there was any of that in God of War. I think the entire story from beginning to end, I think, had such a nice flow to it. Every moment I was 100% invested in. And I was saying, I really hope that God of War wins Best Direction because of that. And it did win in the Game Awards Best Direction, and also Game of the Year, which I think is definitely deserved. And it was just such a pleasant experience and a surprise for me, because I did not think I was going to like this game as much as I did, and it kind of just went to show me personally that there's stuff out there that's still gonna surprise me. Here I am at 31 years old, and I've been playing games for as long as I have. There's still stuff that I'm not gonna expect.
Yeah, well, we're still babies in terms of the video game industry. We still got a long way to go, man. A lot of games coming out next year, the year after. Maybe, heck, when someday we're old men, stale and decrepit and dying in a nursing home somewhere, we might get an update on the Final Fantasy VII remake.
Or Kingdom Hearts 3.
Or Kingdom Hearts 3, which, as is official PAR policy, will never be released.
All right, so there you have it. There is the top 10 games of the year as voted by the Press A Repeatedly staff. I'm thrilled with the list. I think there are a lot of great inclusions. I want to thank everybody for taking out the time to putting together their personal lists, and it was a great year for the pod, a great year for the games, and I'm super excited for next year.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I'm excited to see what the video game world has in store for us next year. I'm excited to see what the podcast has in store for us next year. I'm excited just in general to see what the new year has in store for us. So, yeah, this is a great list. Congratulations again to God of War. Thank you again to everybody for voting. This was a lot of fun, as always. And yeah, we will see you next year.
Yeah. One quick change that's going to be happening for next year. Normally, when we did these Game of the Year countdowns, around the beginning of December is when Chris and I put together the list of games that came out this year for everybody to start tallying up, what they've played. And I've been thinking that I think it would be a better idea to actually start that list in the beginning of this year and just have everybody kind of contribute to it during the year as games are coming out. I think it would be better reference for us to think of, oh yeah, this game's out and I want to play that, and actually have time to do so, as it was, within the past 2 years where it was like, oh yeah, this game is out, but it's December 20th and I have zero time to actually play this game. So I think that could lead to, our members of the team just being able to keep more abreast of games that are coming out this year and have more time to play these games, and then have more games to actually list and compare and vote upon at the end of the year.
Yeah, no, I agree with that completely. Especially it makes things a little easier for us to keep track of everything throughout the year. So, yeah, that's just going to be one change that we're bringing to next year.
Yes, absolutely. And with that,
That's all for
going
this
to
year.
be it for this week and for this year. Remember, Press A repeatedly posts new episodes Tuesdays on iTunes, Google Play, Podbean, YouTube, and Spotify. If you like what you hear, please take a moment to rate and review the show or tell your friends about us. It helps other people find the podcast and will really help us grow. And thank you to all who have rated, reviewed, and subscribed so far. We love you.
You can follow us on our Facebook page or on Twitter and Instagram. We are at Press A Repeatedly. I'm at cgold113, and Justin is at oaf7724. You can email us any questions or comments at parpodcast@gmail.com. That's parpodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to check us out on our website at pressarepeatedly.com. And that's all for this week. Chris and Justin signing off. And remember to swing your Leviathan axe into a dirty, disgusting troll's stupid face. Press A repeatedly.
God of War, I'm the God of War. Do you want some more of what's in store?
I'm the God of War, it's what's in store, it's some for more of God of War. Dad, we stop singing that, please? Happy New Year, everybody.